Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's free webinar. And today I'm talking all about professional emotional intelligence and what the foundation of that looks like. There are a lot of us that have emotional intelligence, but we don't know how to always use that or leverage that effectively, especially when it comes to our professional lives. Not We can't always make the connection to kind of where we want to go in our career and how emotional intelligence is really going to get you there, how it's going to take you there. And the more we start to understand about this and the stronger our foundation is, the faster we're going to get the results that we want, whether it be you want to get a promotion in your career. That's something that you've been striving for ever since you started school, and you know this is exactly what you want to do, but you're having a hard time reaching that title. Or maybe it's that you want to increase your earnings, right? Because as we know, life can be pricey and you're having a really hard time figuring out how is it can I move from what I'm currently earning now to getting that promotion and raise? How am I even going to begin by asking for that? Or it could be that you're just trying to find more enjoyment in what you do. You know you love what you do, but you might not necessarily love who you're working with on a regular basis. And you're really stuck in trying to figure out how is it that I'm going to change this feeling, because I really don't want to job hop right now. It's not a great time to do that. So, professional emotional intelligence is the key to that, and giving you this foundation. And we're going to focus specifically on the foundation today, the assess, acknowledge, and adjust piece. That's really going to give you a strong kickoff point, okay? A base that you can really take and start to run with and start to see those changes that you are trying to implement in your workplace currently, okay, or in your own work life. So that's what we're here to talk about. We're really going to dive into it and give you some strategies and some tools that you can start using immediately after we're done here so that you can start to get those results that you're looking for. Okay. And by the way, for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Jade. And what I help you with is I help professionals really enjoy their work again by reducing stress and miscommunication. And I also help professionals evolve into emotionally intelligent leaders. Now, leaders isn't necessarily somebody who has a leadership title, it's whoever deems themselves as one, who can really start to inspire and impact the others around them in a way that they want to. And I also help you earn more by becoming the kind of person organizations want to promote and clients really love to work with and want to come back to time and time again. So that is what I do for you. And how do I even begin to take you down this path? Well, I'm an emotional intelligence facilitator, and I'm certified in rational emotive behavioral techniques that I can coach and consult on. I'm also a certified professional life coach, and I have experienced leadership roles for 10 years. So I really know what it is like to be in that environment with people who are emotionally intelligent and people who are not. And truth be told, the people that are great in some areas, but not in all areas. And the people who aren't sometimes surprise us and can be really emotionally intelligent in some situations. But wouldn't it be great if we could really bring our emotional intelligence level up all around and again start to really enjoy, evolve, and earn as a professional in the way that we want to? Well, that is exactly what we're here to talk about. And I want to give you the tools to start going there. So, enough about me. Let's really dive into what we're going to talk about today. Now, let me make this bigger for you. So, we're going to talk about the 4-step EQ framework and kind of what emotional intelligence is. By the way, EQ stands for emotional intelligence, if you didn't already know that. So, emotional intelligence is really the ability to recognize and understand emotions, not only in yourself, but in others as well. And you can actually kind of rate yourself on a scale as to how good you are at doing this in 4 different areas. And you can also work on those 4 specific areas to really help increase and build up your professional emotional intelligence, which again is going to help you do things like increase your salary. In fact, Forbes wrote an article specific about emotional intelligence in professionals and how they typically earn $29,000 more annually than people who lack emotional intelligence. So it is really, really helpful, especially on the wallet, when you are able to bring emotional intelligence to your work environment, right? Now, these 4 steps that I take you through are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And you're going to notice that the first 2 are very internal. Okay, we're focusing on ourselves. And we follow these steps for 1 through 4 for a reason, right? Because in order to do well in step number 4, you need to have a good, solid step number 1. And step number 1, guess what, is the foundation of emotional intelligence. And that's this self-awareness piece that you see right here. Now, in order to make this as easy as possible for you to understand, digest, and then actually apply, within each one of these steps, I've broken it down into 3 A's for self-awareness, 3 B's for self-management, 3 C's for social awareness, and 3 D's for relationship management. Because again, systems make things easier. And I just want to make things as simple and as straightforward for you as possible so that you can really take what you're going to get here today and start to apply it. Now, I unfortunately don't have time to go through every single step today, but we are going to really dive in to your foundation because I really want you to have something that you can stand on that's solid, that will help develop all of your other emotional intelligent areas throughout it. So we're really going to focus on that self-awareness piece today. Okay. Now, next piece here. Like I said, each one of these steps has 3 strategies that you can start to work on to really build up your emotional intelligence. And if you're currently working and you're like, I'm not making enough money right now. I really need to make more money. I need to get a raise and I need something that I can speak to that's going to help me get there. Emotional intelligence is one of those things, right? And then if you are thinking, you know what, I've been working towards this position, it was available and I missed out on it and I don't understand why. I'm fantastic at what I do. I should have gotten that role. Likely emotional intelligence is missing. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. So emotional intelligence is likely what may have held you back from getting that position, right? And why somebody else got it instead of you. And then the other thing is if you're just trying to enjoy what you're doing so you don't have to move into a different career because you've invested so much time in this already and you don't want it to be kind of that slog every single day, going to work, checking in, checking out at the end of the day. You want to actually really enjoy the hours that you spend there. Emotional intelligence is also going to help you with that. But we need to start building it. And the place we're going to start is that internal piece and that self-awareness piece. Eventually, once you get self-awareness, self-management down, you start to work on the external. So you look outwardly a little bit more with the social awareness and the relationship management. But in the first segment, we want to work inside so that that emotional intelligence pours out into the rest of our life. So let's dive into self-awareness in those 3 A's so you can really start to build on this professional goal planning. And by the way, when you're filling this out, when you're structuring this, you want to really have a look at or think about what is it that I'm trying to achieve. I talked about three specific things already, right? That enjoyment, that evolve, and that earn. And typically, most professionals are usually looking to earn more, right? Because when we earn more, it gives us more freedom in our life in many, many ways. So a lot of us are going to find that earning is a big motivator as to why we want to increase our emotional intelligence, because it gives us freedom in so many ways. The other one, the next one, is typically a title, right? So they want to evolve and to get to a point in their career that they are happy with, that they have been striving for, that they know they can do, right? And usually, guess what follows that? Earnings, right? You get promoted, typically you get earnings, earning increase. So that's typically the second motivator. And then, funny enough, enjoyment in work life is third. Although it's one of those things where you spend upwards of 40 hours a week in your career. And don't you want to be able to enjoy that as much as possible, as much of your waking hours as you're there for, right? But usually this is the third one that comes in. You're going to find that as you start to elevate your emotional intelligence, all three of these typically move together. But when you're doing this professional goal planning, I want you to pick something very specific that you want to get, that you're working towards, so that you can pick the right strategies in each one of these segments to help you get there faster. Okay. So make sure that when we're doing these exercises, when we're going through and we're looking at the strategies of the A's, that you know exactly where you want to go. Are you trying to earn more? Are you trying to evolve and get that title? Or are you trying to enjoy? Pick one specific one. Again, they all may follow along, but I want you to plan specifically for that. Now, let's have a look at step one, self-awareness, the 3 A's. So again, this is really understanding your inner world, like what's going on inside of you, because if we don't know what we don't know, right? And if we don't know something, we can't make a change. We can't make a change for the better. We can't make a change for the worst. We just don't know it exists. So we're really going to be focusing on understanding ourself and becoming very aware of ourself and how we show up as a professional and what level of emotional intelligence we bring, so that we can move toward our ultimate goal, which is either earnings, evolving, or enjoyment. And these 3 A's are assess, acknowledge, and adjust. And I'm going to go into each one of those with you in more detail and give you a few choices for strategies that you can start to implement. And by the way, I'm going to share a link in the chat here really quickly to my website, because some things I'm not going to have time to talk about, and I am going to reference my site, specifically the resource section. So if you want to find those resources, you're going to go to that site, you're going to go to the professional section, and you're going to find a resource area where it's got more YouTube videos and articles that are going to help you get a broader understanding of these topics and really get what you need to move up in your career in the way that you want to. So let's get going here. Now, first A is assess, which is cultivating conscious reflection. So what do I even mean by that, right? Why are we doing this? Well, we know you're trying to reach that goal, right? And we want to be very cognizant. We want to be very conscious about what it is we're doing that's helping us get there, or what it is we're doing that's not helping us get there. And we want to increase the thing that's helping us and decrease the thing that's not helping us. Typically, when I refer to these, I talk about increasing constructive behavior and decreasing disruptive behavior. Disruptive is not getting you to your goals, and constructive is getting you to your goals that you have. Okay? So we're going to really assess ourselves. And when we go to do this, there's a few different strategies, and you may even come up with some others that you are aware of or you know about on your own. If you do, that's fantastic. But I'm going to talk about these ones, and that's going to give you an idea as to whether or not the strategy you're thinking of on your own is actually going to work for you. Okay. So the first one I'm going to talk about is to really cultivate this conscious reflection and understand ourselves better is weekly career journal check-ins. Now, for those of you who really love journaling, like love writing things down, love talking, even if you love talking about your day, I highly recommend that you get into journaling about it as well. Doing a journaling check-in is going to help you collect some information about how you show up in the workplace, what you focus on when you're at work, and really where your mind and your thoughts and your emotions are being pulled. Okay. Now, the most effective way to do this, I've got weekly in here. Some people will do it daily. Weekly works fine as well. Monthly, I'd say, is too far. You need to have it a little bit closer together. Otherwise, you start to forget kind of what's happened and how you felt about those things. But a summary of the month is fine. Now, the check-in piece specifically refers to almost asking or answering the same questions every time you go to do your journal. So you might have some guiding questions or guiding statements that then you're answering. And the reason for this is you're trying to look for consistencies or like specific habits that you have in how you show up in the workplace. For example, let's say one of your questions is you are asking yourself, this week, what was something that was one of my biggest wins or made me feel really great this week, right? If you answer that every week over the course of 2 months and you're able to look at that, you're going to see what really drives specific behaviors for you to feel good. Okay. And noticing those patterns and drivers is really helpful. Let's say one of your questions for yourself is, what were some things that I really didn't enjoy this week? You might notice that you have some patterns or consistencies in who's involved in some of those scenarios consistently that you don't enjoy, right? Maybe it's a specific individual that you work with, or maybe it's not even the individual, but it's a specific scenario with that person, right? And being able to collect this data from ourselves and actually track it and assess it is going to give us a better understanding of how we're showing up and then what's invoking certain emotions in us, and in turn causing us to exhibit specific behaviors. Okay, you still follow me? So another way of saying this would be, what happens at work that makes me act a certain way? What happens at work that makes me feel a certain way, right? Because all of our decisions are run through how we're feeling. And regardless of how, what do I want to say, like stone face or unemotional somebody shows up, they are still making their choices through how they're feeling, whether or not you can tell by the way they look, by the way they present. They're still making choices on how they feel. So understanding our emotions is really, really important. Okay. Now, the next strategy that you could use, if you're not big on journaling, that's never been your thing, don't force yourself to get into something that you know isn't your strong suit. You're less likely to do it. I don't want that to happen. I want you to want to do these things. So then let's say, you know what, weekly career journaling, that's not for me. That's out. I'm not going to do it. I know myself well enough to know that I hate journaling. That's great. Don't do that. But we do need to collect some data somehow, right? Now, if you're finding that you're having a hard time even figuring out, things that bother you or how you're showing up when you journal, this next one, this 360-degree feedback survey, is a good way to go about it. Now, there is a specific program for this, but I think it's paid. Basically, in summary, the way you do this is you're getting feedback from everyone that interacts with you. So from all different directions. And the feedback you're looking for is how you're perceived by them. Now, very specifically, it's not so that you can have a conflict and try and change their mind about it. All you're doing is collecting information. You're collecting perspectives. You want to document it somehow. So, again, if you have a specific checklist in mind that you can go through that's consistent, because you're trying to find out, are there specific ways I'm being perceived? And is it across the board? Is it only with certain people? Is it perceived in a constructive way or a disruptive way? Right. So by collecting that feedback from all around you, it is really helpful to start to build a picture of what you look like to others from a professional standpoint, right? And this can be challenging at times, especially because a lot of us don't want to upset each other, right? And it's a very you have to have a lot of patience if you want to use this effectively, if you're going to initiate it. There are some companies, again, that pay to use a program to do this for people, which can keep things a little bit less personal by disconnecting it, right? Like it's anonymous. You don't know who's giving that feedback, but you know you've got it, and now you have that perspective that you can work from, right? You can still do this on your own, and you can even talk to, if you've got a leadership team, a way of implementing something like that where it can remain a little bit more anonymous, to again find those gaps in knowledge, because we're having a hard time doing it ourselves, right? So doing that 360-degree kind of feedback survey or like collection of perspectives can be really, really helpful when you're trying to assess yourself. Now, next one here is work style and emotional intelligence self-assessment. A lot of people love self-assessments or work style questionnaires, right? And there's a reason for that. It's because we're getting feedback in a very passive way. It's not very direct, but it's still effective because it causes us to be conscious of reflecting on what we do, and it gives us a starting point. So I actually have 3 emotional intelligence assessments that you can do. If you go to my website in the resource section, or you're going to see them, actually, I believe they're labeled as self-assessments in 3 different areas. There's one in communication, relationships, as well as leadership. So take any assessment that you feel is most helpful to you. It's completely free resource for you to have. And then that way, again, it's just asking you questions to get you to look at how you show up. We really are trying to assess how we're being perceived and how we show up, so that we can fill gaps of information that we have in our brain, right? In our perception. So then we can pick the right strategies to move forward and really get to where we want to go in our career, to get that raise, to get that title, to enjoy what we do again. So these self-assessments are really, really awesome. And there's some fantastic books you can even read on things like work styles and how people show up. One really great book I can think of off the top of my head, I can't remember the author, but it's really good and it's funny. It's called Everybody's an Idiot. And it honestly just focuses on all the different ways, personality traits or ways we show up, and how we kind of think, and why we work well with others and maybe not so well with other people. Really, really great book. Highly recommend it. And then lastly, what I have here for strategy for our emotional, or our assessment here, is emotional audit moments. So you can pay attention to when you feel emotionally elevated. Now, this can be in multiple ways, right? Whether when you're feeling a lot of happiness and enjoyment, that you can audit. Great, I felt this way at work today. It was really happy. I was working with said person. I had a great interaction with a client, and this is what it was. And note those extreme or those elevated moments of emotion. You can do this on the same level for kind of elevated, what you would perceive as negative emotions, right? I was frustrated, angry, stressed, upset, overwhelmed. You can also audit those moments. Now, the reason I'm saying you want to audit those extreme moments is because you're going to get more clear data from yourself by talking about those extreme moments. It's going to be easier for you to see what kind of pushed you or got you to that elevated emotional state. So really working on doing those little emotional audits are great. If you don't feel like you're somebody who has a lot of emotional volatility, you can just have scheduled check-in moments for yourself. It could be like midday during your lunch that you're answering a few questions specifically about how you're feeling about your day. And again, consistency in those questions will be really, really helpful. So in terms of our professional goal planning, right now you have to fill out your assess piece, okay? You have to fill out what is it that I'm going to do now in these strategies we just talked about that will most likely get me towards my ultimate goal. Remember, your goals could be to enjoy what you do more, to evolve and get a title you want or move up it in your career path, or earn more, okay? Likely they're going to be specific to those. It's okay if they're not, but I bet you whatever you're choosing is going to fall within one of those three categories. So what strategy works well for you? And just to hop back really quickly, remember, I gave you 4 different things you could do. Pick what you think is going to be the easiest thing for you to do. If you love journaling, do the journal check-in. If you like talking to people and collecting perspectives from others, do the 360-degree feedback. If you like doing surveys or assessments, go ahead and go over to my website and do that emotional self-assessment, right? Or if you are big on already understanding a lot of your feelings and you understand emotional granularity really well and can really get into describing exactly what it is you feel, do the emotional audit moments. And by the way, if you don't know what emotional granularity is, there is an article and a resource in my resource page that's going to give you that information. And I believe there's a short YouTube video on it too. Really good to know, really good to understand. But fill this out. What strategy are you going to do to move forward with increasing your self-awareness in the assessment section? How are you going to start to find your gaps in knowledge about you? Now, next, we have acknowledge, okay? And this is owning your inner landscape. So remembering that these things that we're doing, all of this, we want to acknowledge that it's ours, right? Our gaps in knowledge belong to us. And the power behind acknowledging that is that when you own your inner landscape, when you say, yep, this is mine to take care of, you can take care of it. You're not waiting on anyone to do something else. You're not waiting on a coworker to start acting the way you'd like them to, so you can then do that in turn. You're not waiting on anybody else to finish whatever it is in regards to helping you feel better. You're taking charge of you, okay? And that gives you control. And control is great. We have the most impact, control, and influence over ourselves. So don't give it away to somebody else. Acknowledge that it's yours. Own that inner landscape. Okay. And the way we can do this, the way we can start to take ownership again for ourselves, is we can do things like the name it to tame it technique. Okay. So a lot of people with higher levels of emotional granularity, again, go look it up in the resource, is the benefit to that is that they're able to say, okay, I am experiencing this specific thing. Now that I know and I've gotten as specific as I can about the emotion I'm experiencing, it is easier for me to figure out a way to manage that effectively. Okay, name it to tame it. Get right down in there with your emotional granularity, right exactly to what it is. Like stress is not just stress. Stress is too broad a topic. You need to really hone in to exactly what it is. So again, it just makes it easier to see, this is how I need to handle this. This is how I can deal with this, right? This is how I can acknowledge it and own it. The next strategy you could use is something called trigger mapping. Trigger mapping is awesome and amazing. And if you're doing your assessment piece really, really well and collecting that data so that it's somewhere tangible that you can look back at, not just remembering, because truth be told, we don't all remember everything, documenting, then trigger mapping is a really, really great next step, because you're going to be able to see things like, okay, this scenario came up. I was really upset with my coworker because of how we dealt with the situation, okay, or how they dealt with the situation. And what was it that elevated that emotion of anger? What spiked me? What caused that to really get set off? Was it just the conversation with that coworker, or were there other things that came into play prior to that conversation that might have steered this response, this reaction that I had in that direction? Okay. So you can really start to pinpoint little things you can start doing or that you do that then cause you to have a really disruptive response, a really negative response, and a really unhappy, unfun, and angry situation. Conversely, you can also do for the opposite. I had a wonderful, fantastic, amazing experience with my coworker. What was it about that moment, that individual, and everything else leading up to it that might have triggered that constructive, happy, wonderful feeling, right? It doesn't just have to be negative. Triggers can be positive, constructive things as well. And if you can pinpoint what those triggers are, then you can strategically start to drop them into your life on a regular basis, right? This is the power of acknowledging these are the things that can cause me to feel X, Y, and Z, that can cause me to react with X, Y, and Z. So it's really, really amazing. I love trigger mapping. Highly recommend using that. Next one here is pattern spotting exercises. So again, if you're doing really well in your assessment piece and you're documenting very well, then you're going to be able to spot patterns successfully. Patterns that you have in terms of habits, patterns that you have in terms of triggers, right? All sorts of different patterns will start to arise if you've documented your experience as well in terms of the assessment piece when you're looking at everything, right? And spotting those patterns allows you to see maybe some deep-seated habits that you have in place. Okay, when this happens, I always do this. When this happens, this always happens, right? When I have this external prompt or stimuli, I always feel this. And that's a pattern within me. And I'm acknowledging that pattern because now I can change it if I want to, right? So pattern spotting exercises are fantastic, and giving yourself more data makes it easier for you to be able to do that. And then we have mentorship reflection conversation. So again, this is for the person who likes to talk things out, okay? You might really enjoy this. You can choose somebody or who you gravitate towards, right? It could be somebody with a leadership title. It could be somebody who doesn't have a leadership title, but you feel like is a bit of a leader to you, right? A bit of a mentor to you in your workplace. Start to talk to them and have real conversations about things like, do you notice if there's anything that triggers certain behaviors in me? Do you see any patterns that pop up with me on a regular basis, right? Like, how do you perceive what I'm feeling in this scenario or that scenario? And by talking that out, you're almost using that other person who is voluntarily wanting to do this as well. Mentors are very, very giving and caring and empathetic, and they want to show up. You can't just tell somebody to be your mentor and have them show up that way. You'll know who that person is for you in your workplace. We typically always at least have one. They're going to want to show up for you, and they can be a soundboard for you, and they can help you determine, kind of what patterns or triggers that you need to acknowledge in your own behaviors and actions that are happening on a regular basis. And again, it's not always negative. Sometimes it's that acknowledgement of the good ones, right? The ones that are really going to move you forward to where you want to go in terms of your earnings, your enjoyment, and your evolution in your career. So, really being able to talk it out for some of us is very helpful. And if you can find that mentor you have in the workplace who you gravitate towards, who likes talking to you, they can help you with this. Now, having those strategies, what are you going to do to fill in? What are you going to pick to acknowledge in this self-awareness piece? So your second A, right? We did assess. Now we're looking at the acknowledgement strategy. What are we going to do to acknowledge these patterns, these habits, these consistencies, these things that cause certain responses or reactions in us, right? And again, make this as easy as possible. Do not make it hard on yourself. If you're good with emotional granularity, name it to tame it is amazing. If you like being analytical about situations that happened and you can trace them back, trigger mapping is your friend. If you just like collecting data and finding patterns, if you're that Excel sheet person, drop into an Excel sheet and start spotting patterns, right? Or if you just want to talk it out and take notes, that mentorship reflection conversation is great. And if you are somebody who is already well on your path or your journey to elevating your emotional intelligence, it's likely you've read some form of self-help book that has probably given you some tools to help you acknowledge this in yourself. So pick that strategy, drop it into your professional goal planning, because again, we want to get you to where you want to go in your career. And the way we do that is by making a nice, easy path to follow. So this is a piece of your path to follow. All right, I need a drink of water here. I'm talking so much. All right, the last A in this system, in this framework that we're using, is adjust. So intentionally shape your impact. Now, the word impact, you could also replace that with influence. Okay, some people even use the word manipulate, but basically they're all meaning the same thing, which is we want to intentionally shape our action, the impact, the influence that we have on our environment around us. So we're really going to start to think about that based on the assess information that we have and the acknowledge information that we have now. Okay, we're really going to start to adjust what way we're showing up. Now, this is planning stages for this. Okay, so this is where we're really going to start to structure a plan and start to hold ourselves accountable for this piece, this self-awareness piece. We've collected information. We know what we need to work on. Now, how are we going to do that? How are we going to start to make that change? Because the next step number 2, self-management, that's where the rubber's going to meet the road. We got to start adjusting. We got to start playing with our mindset and kind of moving ourselves in the direction. So our mind is there so we can actually start to take action and behave in the way we want to. Now, because we're doing adjustment, a lot of people will say, well, this is me changing who I am so that I'm not my authentic self. That is not what we're trying to do here. I still want you to show up as your authentic self, but I want you to use your constructive behaviors, not your disruptive ones. You can still authentically be you and be the constructive version of you that's going to help get you to where you want to go. Okay? That version of you exists and is in there. And I want to bring your consciousness around so that we're pulling from that piece of you on a regular basis, and we can decrease that disruptive piece, because typically that disruptive piece jumps out, and quite often we wish it had have just stayed inside, right? We say those things that we regret. We say those things we feel bad about. And then we're like, oh, why did I do that? Like, that's not who I want to be, right? So I'm just helping you pull forward the constructive, authentic version of you. I'm not saying change who you are. You are who you are, right? But you can be constructive as well. So we're going to talk about some strategies. Let's talk about reframing your default thinking. This one's really, really cool. If you've heard about reframing before, basically it's how we think something's going to go. Okay. Let's envision a scenario that we know typically plays out in a certain way, especially since we've done some assessments here, right? Most of us have at least one person we work with who we butt heads with, we don't jive with well, right? And when we think about them, we frame every situation that and every kind of interaction we're going to have with, I don't get along with them. There's your frame. Did you see it? I don't get along with them. We don't work well together. We always argue, right? So you framed before you've even had an interaction. You've already got a nice frame around that picture of what you think it's going to look like and how you think it's going to play out. Okay. This is what you've set yourself up for. And we really want to believe that we are true and that our environment and our experiences line up with what we're thinking, right? We don't want to lie to ourselves. We want to believe ourselves. Out of anybody in the world, we want to believe us, right? We have to live with us our entire lives. So when we frame something like, I don't get along with this person, we're going to do things that make us believe that reaffirm that for us. Now, the problem with reframing that can be really toxic if you're not careful is we go, okay, well, I know I frame things as like, I don't get along with this person and that's not working. Okay, I'm going to reframe. I love this person. This person is awesome. We always get along. But there's a problem. Okay. Now we're lying to ourselves and we don't like lying to ourselves. We want ourselves to be true. But to go from I don't get along with this person to we get along is the complete opposite side of the scale. So you're asking yourself to go from a 1 to a 10, and it's hard to make that jump, right? Without tons of effort and feeling exhausted and overwhelmed, and you're trying to go against every fiber of your being. Your body already believes I don't get along with this person. This has been what I've been telling myself and we've been talking about for a long time and experiencing. Now all of a sudden I do, like, that's not true. That doesn't make sense. Well, the key with this is to go in little baby steps. So instead of going from I don't like this person to I love this person, you're going to go to something like, sometimes we don't get along on certain topics. So it's a slight step. You're not saying with everything you don't get along with them with. Sometimes, right? That's more believable. That's something I can work with because I do believe sometimes we don't get along. That I know is true. That I know is clear for me. But now I just tweak it a little bit and let's see if we can make that true. So sometimes you're not going to get along with them, but sometimes you are going to get along with them. And that's the expectation you've set up with that frame. And when you get good at that, you're going to move it a little bit farther along. Majority of the time, we get along, but these topics, not always. Or we have a hard time seeing eye to eye on these specific topics, right? So you're slowly moving yourself along the scale to get to a point where you can say, I do get along with this coworker. We just need to discuss things in more depth, right? And it's believable and therefore it's attainable. All right. You're not lying to yourself. You're being very truthful. So reframing your default thinking is an extraordinary exercise, but you have to go slowly along that scale. Don't go extreme or you're going to drive yourself crazy. We don't want that. We want to get to our goals. Then there's the intentional communication drill strategy. So next one on our list here, okay, for adjusting. We can plan ahead if we know from our assessment and acknowledgement that communication is a problem for us. So we can be really intentional with things we're going to say. We can plan those ahead of time, practice saying them if we have a hard time saying those things, and practice implementing them, right? And one day a week, I'm going to be trying to do this or speak in this way or use this phrasing around this specific thing now, right? So we can be really intentional with our communication drills and plan them out, because when we plan it and we practice it, we are more likely to implement it. So really great strategy there. There's the emotional pause and practice. This is so powerful and so undervalued. An emotional pause is basically taking a second when you know and you can feel you're starting to get elevated to not respond right away, to not react right away, and to not dive in mentally right away into the situation. It's actually to take a breath, to count down from 3 or 10, whatever your number is, and to bring yourself back to a calmer state of being before moving forward. All right, this mindset piece here, this adjustment piece, this pause is incredibly powerful, and there are lots of different strategies you can use to do that. It is really undervalued, but it is one of the best things to really expand your ability to be patient with people. And that helps so much for you and for others, and to get you to where you want to go. Now, last one is set a weekly behavior goal. Now, some people have a negative connotation around the word behavior. If you do, switch out behavior for action. Basically, it's just really how you want to show up, how you want to act, how you want to behave. And those things can be positive. Behaviors can be constructive, right? They don't always have to be disruptive. We were just talked to as children a lot about how we were behaving when it was disruptive or negative at that time, right? When we were getting in trouble. So when you set this weekly behavior goal, you really want to line it up with specific things that trigger you, and what you're going to replace that old behavior with this new one that you want to drop in there. And again, making it realistic, right? If it's something whereby I really don't want to blow up at this person because I automatically start rolling my eyes and being like, okay, whatever, you're going to have to do that in little pieces, because that's a really big response. Maybe start with, I'm not going to roll my eyes. Instead of rolling my eyes, I'm actually just going to keep maintaining some eye contact with them for a moment, or I'm going to start nodding my head instead. Okay. And this can trigger a lot of psychological things in terms of your ability to listen, but we can get into that another time because I'm talking too much here and I don't want this to be too long for you. But now we've got the adjust piece for these A's, okay? Assess, acknowledge, adjust. Pick one of those strategies. Again, we're focusing on getting you to either higher earnings, evolving your career and getting that title you want, or enjoying what you do more, whatever your goal falls within. We're trying to get you there. And you want to make sure the strategy you're picking, you feel like is in alignment with this. You also want to make whatever strategy you're picking an easy one for you. Okay, whatever is easiest, do the easy thing, because you're more likely to complete it. And completing these 3 A's is what's going to elevate your self-awareness and create this rock solid foundation for you to really jump off and reach those goals that you're going for. Now, like I said, today we went through this self-awareness piece, the 3 A's, the assess, acknowledge, adjust, and you've got strategies for each one of them. I don't have time to go through the self-management, social awareness, and relationship management piece. I really want to, but I don't have time today, and I would love to do that with you another time, but I definitely want you to take away this self-awareness piece. Now, let's say you got that self-awareness piece down, you're really happy with it in terms of moving forward with it, and you do want to know more. You want, okay, what are the 3 B's? I'm ready for the B's. What are the C's? What are the D's? Maybe you're somebody who's like, I need to see the full picture of how this flows in order for me to even get started. Well, I like to think about next steps. And again, I want you to be successful. So, what you can do next is when you're moving forward, make sure that you're choosing your A, B, C's, and D strategies and focusing on them each week. Okay. You need to be implementing those and showing up and doing them every single week if you want to see this change and get to your goal. If you're somebody who needs to see the whole thing listed out, I do have a free professional checklist that you can get. And hang on, if you are having a hard time with that QR code, I've got the link to it right here. So I've shared that in the chat as well. So you can go ahead and just click that link, and then it'll get emailed to you and you can see the whole structure. You'll get all the B's, C's, and D's, and then you can plan out your flow for how you're going to move forward and get to those higher earnings, that title, and that enjoyment you're looking for. And I want to make sure too that as you're going through this, you are tracking your growth, right? Because if you can track what you're doing and you can see that change, that's going to motivate you to keep going. Right? Now, I mentioned before, if you go to my website, I've got those free emotional intelligence assessments. What I recommend people do to help track their growth is you go back and you do those assessments again and you see where your answers changed. So you can start to see where you're filling in gaps. You might even start to notice new gaps that you didn't notice and couldn't acknowledge before, right? And now, because you can assess them, acknowledge them, you can now start to adjust those, which is phenomenal and is really going to just throw you ahead in your career in the way that you've wanted it to your whole entire life. And then lastly is the reflect and adjust, right? So if you're using a strategy and it's not working, so not working would be you're not showing up and doing it consistently enough. You're having a hard time with implementation in some way, it's not fitting into your work structure the way that you want it to, then pick a new strategy, right? Or make it easier. Okay, so pull things away that's making it harder and make it as easy as possible. All right, break it down. Do whatever you need to do to make it easy so that it gets done, because that's the important piece. Or switch up to another strategy and do that instead if you feel that's going to be easier for your work structure. Okay, so you've got your next step. You can get that whole system given to you right away through that checklist by scanning that QR code or going to the link there. It's going to take you to the same place. You know where you can go find resources to learn more about emotional granularity, as well as assessing your communication and emotional intelligence and relationships and your leadership when it comes to professional emotional intelligence. I feel like I've given you a good chunk of information and things to do to really get you to those goals. And if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me at any time. Email is great, and I'm on LinkedIn very, very frequently. But I hope you found this helpful today. I am going to stop recording here momentarily so that if people do want to ask questions and are here live, they can do so privately, because this is going to be uploaded to YouTube momentarily. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day and let me know what's worked for you. If you've done something and it's worked really well, please reach out and tell me. I love hearing about people's success.